message from God because I had been given a message to pass on to him. I didn't know the meaning of it, so all I had to do was tell him. He stopped me and he said, Sarah, do you know God will visit you? I laughed. I was just,
that's hard to believe.
That's not me. It is hard to believe, it is. But I was so shy, like I could never approach people. Even when people came to me, I would be like, hey, and then run off. Fine, and I was still scared because I thought, am I dying? Is it some sort of illusion that's going on? I didn't understand.
Saying the Lord's time is the best time.
It is the best time. It's definitely
true.
The best time. Yeah.
Hello, welcome back to Testimony Time with Genesis. I'm Georgina Patrick and I'm here today to present Sarah's testimony to you. So Sarah, can you continue telling us about your experiences with the Lord?
After the Lord said, I built this for my children, daughter, we then sat on the beach and watched the horizon for quite a while. After a while, the Lord then said to me, tell your father I only want him to testify about the reality of hell, that is all. My children must know this reality, but the rest he shall wait on my command. Okay, daughter? I replied, yes, Lord. The Lord then took me to a place of worship where people were just worshipping him non-stop, and I just stood there. And then after this, he then went back onto his throne, and along with the rest of the saints, I joined with glorifying his name.
Can I ask you something? In this place of worship, were there all religions? Did you know what religions they were, or were they just Christians?
It was mainly, I didn't know what religion, but all I knew was that they were wearing white robes, and they were saints, because the fact that they're already in heaven, surely there must be.
They were saints.
Yeah.
Okay.
After the glorification of God's name, the Lord then came back and said that we must go. I got changed, and before leaving, I turned around and I said, Lord, you truly did build a beautiful city. May your name be glorified. After saying so, the Lord then took me back home, and before leaving, he said, don't forget to tell your father what I said. Okay, I nodded, and then I came back. I'm going to have to miss the 7th of August as well.
Okay.
On the 8th of August, the visit was from 8:40 to 9:43. As usual, the Lord said, daughter, I must speak with you. He took my hand, and when we got to heaven, I got changed. After changing, the Lord then took me to a big screen again. We stood in front of it, and the Lord started to show me short clips of people. The Lord said, this is how Satan gets into people. Look. I looked and saw two people. I saw two people. One was a friend who was showing the other friend a car that they had just bought. And the other friend was just looking around. I then saw some sort of demon. It was like a spirit. It was black. It was like a spirit. And the demon entered within the other friend who was looking at the new car that their friend has bought. And that was inserted jealousy into them. So as soon as they had entered within that person, they suddenly became jealous.
Oh, so jealousy is a demon?
Yes.
Okay. I've always thought the same.
The Lord then showed me another scene where this scene was two friends were on the phone. One was telling the other about some good news about what had happened to her that day. There were two women about that day. Some good news about what had happened to her that day. And then I saw like a demon, and it had inserted itself into her, and suddenly the other friend that was listening started to hate the friend that was telling the good news. So instead of being, friendly and happy for the person, she started hating the other friend.
Envy.
Yeah. And then suddenly she's after hating, the Lord then showed me the last scene, which was two people inside. It was one person inside a shop. The person seemed to be looking around. When you're looking around looking for something to buy, that's what the person was doing. But then all of a sudden, near to the person, there was like a demon, and it inserted itself into her, the need of stealing. And suddenly, when that demon had inserted itself into the person, they stole something and they left the shop. So it was like, there's some things where, one thing I learned from this is, be careful what you say to people. Not everyone's going to be happy about what you tell them. They may put on a face where, oh, I'm so happy for you. Oh my God, that happened to you. You don't know what's going on inside their heart. So you really have to be careful on the things that you allow people to know, on the things that you let out. Because it's good that obviously you're happy, but then look at the danger. If they start hating you, they could hurt you one way or the other just because of that. So you do have to be careful. And after showing me this, the Lord then, the people within those 3 sins, they didn't know that the demons were there. They didn't realize it. So that's why when you have the feeling of, oh, I hate that person, anger, jealousy, whatever it may be, you have to pray. You must pray for God to remove that feeling, because if you don't, it will lead you into falling into a greater sin. So you must really be careful about that. After showing me this, the Lord then took me back home. On the 9th of August, the visit was from 8:30 to 9:25. As usual, the Lord came to me and said, I must speak with you. He held out his hand and I took it. We went to heaven, and once changed, we sat in front of we sat on the beach for quite a long time, just looking out into the horizon, not saying anything at all. The Lord then stood me up and we started walking to a place that looked like a park. We didn't stay long. We carried on walking. We came to a place where it had shops. And I asked the Lord, will the food ever run out? He replied, no, daughter. Although I knew the answer, I still wanted to hear the Lord confirm it for himself. He then took me to a room that it was filled with fruits, all sorts of fruits. And it was like a huge garden with just a pathway where you could walk and choose the fruits. It was like it had patterns, like some fruits I recognized, some fruits I didn't. So but it looked beautiful, like the patterns and the color, how it matched. It looked amazing. And after that, the Lord then took me and we just walked around the magnificent city of heaven. Just walked around. The Lord showed it was like a tour again. And then the Lord said to me, most things I do for my children are according to what they have asked I, the Lord. While saying this, I could sense the Lord smiling, and then the Lord said that we had to go, so he took me back to get changed and led me home. So a lot of things that the Lord does is if you ask him. You ask him, God, I want this, God, I want that, God, I want you to bless me with this. And he will do it according to how you ask. But then the one thing about this is patience. Wait, the Lord, he hears your prayer, he has heard it, and he will do it. But wait for his time. Don't rush him. You don't rush God. He will do it at his time, because maybe the time that you wanted it is the time where if he had given it to you, something bad could have happened to remove that blessing from you. You may have lost it one way or the other. You may not be concentrated on it. So he gives it in the right time where he knows you can keep it and you can keep it for good. And he knows that it's safe in your hands where no one can take it away. Nothing bad would even happen to it. And you will be happy rather than rushing and saying, God, I want it now. You don't know what's to come.
So that saying, the Lord's time is the best time.
It is the best time. It's definitely
true.
the best time, yeah. And on the 10th of August, the visit was from 8:15 to 9:10. As usual, when the Lord came to take me, I got changed and he took me to the beach again. We stood there and just watched out into the horizon for quite a while. We just stood there not saying anything. And it's weird because this would be the best opportunity to ask questions. But at this moment, no questions came into my head.
Were you nervous being in the presence of the Lord?
No, I felt safe.
Okay.
I felt safe. I felt protected. I felt happy. Whereas when you come back to this world, you go out, you don't know what's going to happen. You still have those insecurities. You don't know whether you're secure or not. But with the Lord, I felt protected. I felt safe.
But did you feel confident enough to, have dialogue with the Lord, speak and have conversations with the Lord?
At this point, I did. I felt like I could tell the Lord anything. I could speak to him like I speak to everyone, and he would listen. So it was
very natural.
Yeah.
Okay.
When after just looking out into the horizon, the Lord then took me to where people worship him, and said, "These people are all saints, daughter. A lot of them can be found in the Bible. I will show you more of them in the next visit, okay?" And after leaving there, the Lord then took me, and we just started walking around the city for a while. And after a while, the Lord then told me that we had to go, so he escorted me back home. On the 11th of August, the visit was from 9:35 to 10:25. That morning, the Lord held out his hand and said, "I must speak with you, daughter." And when we got to heaven, after getting changed, the Lord then took me to the beach. We didn't stay there very long. And after all, we started walking, and the Lord led me to a big room. Where it was just saints sitting around. They were just sitting around on a table. And then they were speaking, but as the Lord entered the room, everything just went silent. Everyone went quiet. And the Lord pointed out one of the saints and said, "That daughter is Moses." After saying Moses' name, he looked at me and waved, so I waved back. The Lord then pointed at people that he had already shown me, like in the previous visits, like Abraham, Mary, the thief. But then he also showed me Joseph. They all kind of looked similar. It was like, because they were young, they had gone back to being young. They kind of looked similar in a way, but then you could tell this was who was who in between them. They all, after the Lord said all their names, they all turned around and waved, so I waved back, and I was filled with so much happiness that I'm not able to describe. After the Lord then took me to everyone that came, after the Lord took me there, he went back onto his throne, so he took me to where people were worshipping him, so I joined in with the worship. And then after we were done worshipping him, the Lord then took me back and said that we had to go. On the 12th of August, the Lord didn't visit me. And I woke up. I remember I was panicked. I had in mind, I thought, God, what have I done wrong? Did I say something? Did I do something? Did I sin? What is it that I've done wrong? Please tell me, because why didn't you visit me? And that whole day I was so uncomfortable. I felt really upset inside because the Lord hadn't visited me. And however, later that day, after telling my dad, later that day, I heard a voice say to me, daughter, I want you to rest today, and I shall come and visit you very soon, okay? Do not worry, but I want you to eat, okay? Eat. And after hearing this, I felt so much better. It's like my whole day was brightened.
Okay, so you've been fasting whilst these experiences happen. How are you planning your fasting? How are you doing it?
I started from the 26th of July. From that day onwards, I was fasting until the Lord had allowed me to eat. If he said eat, then I'll eat.
Oh, so you weren't eating anything?
Anything.
No water?
No, I would fast from midnight until 6. When it gets to 6 p.m, I would drink water, milk, and a bit of bread.
So from midnight till 6 p.m?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And not eat anything at all. And that would go on for however long I was fasting.
Until the Lord said eat.
Eat. Then I could eat proper food. On the 13th of August, the visit was from 9:30 to 10:40. And the Lord came as usual, held out his hand. And once we got to heaven, I got changed. But then we got into something that had an appearance of a car. It looked like a car. He told me to get into the car, so I got into the driver's seat and the Lord got into the passenger seat. I started steering the wheel. Although I wasn't pressing down on any pedals, it just looked like we were moving. And I felt I was filled with so much happiness just seeing that. Because in this world, I can't drive. And I'm scared of driving.
Don't be.
Because I'm always scared I'm going to crash or something. So I've always been scared of driving. I'm not getting in there.
Don't think like that.
But then in heaven, it was like, oh my God, I can drive. You know, I felt happy. And after we drove around for a while, the Lord then said that he needed to show me something else. So we got out of the car and the Lord took me to a long dark tunnel that we had entered before. And once I realized that it was the tunnel that led us to hell, I started pleading God not to take me there anymore. But the Lord along with me carried on walking down the tunnel. When we got to the edge of the tunnel to go down the hole, I pleaded God even harder not to take me down to hell. And he replied, daughter, I'm not taking you down there again, but I just need you to remember everything I showed you. And I replied, yes, Lord, I remember. After saying this, everything immediately came back to my head. Everything from A to Z about the visitation of hell. I remembered everything all of a sudden. And after saying this, and I remembered everything. And then the Lord then took me out of the tunnel. We sat down on a bench for a while until the Lord said to me that we had to go. So he took me back. And after getting change, he then led me home. On the 14th of August, the Lord visited me from 7:30 to 8:40. He revealed himself. He gave me his hand and we went to heaven. And once changed, the Lord took me to the beach. And we sat there for quite a long time because most of the time we spoke. I said to the Lord, sorry if I refuse for you to take me to hell. I shouldn't have refused because it benefits me. Also, Lord, what are your plans for me after this visitation? Because I don't know what to do. He replied, it is okay, daughter. After this visitation, I want you to write everything down properly. Then once you've finished writing everything, I then want you to begin testifying the reality of heaven and hell. But begin at your church, okay? Daughter, the visitation is soon coming to an end, but before I need to show you a little bit more things and form you too. I do not want you to open fast until Sunday, but you may eat small things such as eggs, sandwich, or tea and bread. I I then said, "Thank you, Lord. Please can you show me how you formed earth?" The Lord then took me to a very big screen. We sat down on chairs, and then the Lord began pointing at the screen and saying, "Let there be land," and immediately land would appear. And then he pointed again, "Let there be the sea," and the sea appeared. "Let there be fishes," and the fishes appeared. And he did this several times with different things to show how the world was created. And to be honest, it was amazing to see that the Lord did not have to touch anything. All he had to do was speak and point, and that was it. Everything was done. After showing me this, the Lord then said that we had to go. So then the Lord took me back. On the 15th of August, on the morning of the 15th, the Lord visited me from 9:30 to 11:30. This visit lasted much longer than usual, and the Lord visited me and said that he needed to speak with me. So once we got to heaven, after changing, the Lord took me on top of a mountain. We sat down on a rock. We then started talking, and I said, "Lord, can you just send me back to the world? Let me tell people the reality of heaven and hell, and then bring me back to live here forever, because I love it here. I'd rather be here than anywhere else." The Lord then replied, "Daughter, I know how much you want to stay here, but it isn't outside your time yet. You must tell people about the reality so that they can make a choice whilst on earth." And what he means by choice is make a choice whether do you want to do the right thing or the wrong thing. Because either way, you're going to have to pay for the consequences. And then we stayed there for a little while longer until the Lord said that he needed to show me something. Therefore, he led me down the mountain, and in front of a very big screen, he said, "Daughter, this is how Satan will be caught and thrown into the pit of fire." And when he said this, on the screen, there was Angel Michael and a lot of other angels. They tied Satan up in chains, but he was facing down, so I couldn't see his face. They tied him up in chains and with all his demons, and his horns was very big as well. The Lord then stood there for a while, and then the Lord took me back to the mountain. We sat on the rock. After a while, the Lord then said that he needed to show me something else, but this time we didn't go down the mountain. We just looked down, and the Lord said, "Daughter, look at people's earth bodies. Look at how it is." I looked down. Oh, it's amazing, because in this world we try to clean up our body, make sure we look clean. We put all sorts of moisturizers, creams, and all sorts, just so that we can look clean, and we believe we look clean. But when you look at it spiritually, once your spirit actually leaves your body, the only pure thing in your body is your spirit. Because once it leaves, this body is so disgusting. You will not even believe that's the body that you carry around. It is so disgusting. Somewhere after this visitation, I looked at myself and I thought, so what's the point of us actually having to clean? Because if on the last day our spirits will go and this body will stay, and it looks disgusting, it could make you want to vomit. The Lord then, after showing me this, the Lord then said the only pure thing in a person's body is the spirit. After looking at the horrible sight, we sat back on the rock, and I said, "Lord, after the visitation finishes, will you come back to visit and speak with me? Because I don't want to stop seeing you coming to heaven." The Lord then replied, "The visitation is coming to an end. Yes, but I still need to form you, daughter. And after the visits end, don't worry, I will be visiting you every once in a while." The Lord then said that we needed to go back, so he took me back and I got changed and he brought me home.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. We're going to take a break right there, and we'll be back to listen to more of Sarah's testimony. Stay tuned.